Thank you. Mr. Brady's recognized.
Well, it's not exactly a profile in courage that big business leaders were willing to raise taxes on small businesses in America. Not exactly a courageous move by any measure. You know, this budget is not fair to taxpayers. The President's budget never has to balance, that Washington never has to live within its means. It's not fair to seniors that the President refuses to save Social Security Medicare for its own sake, for the seniors, rather than attach all these unrelated provisions that have nothing to do with those important programs, and certainly not fair to the unemployed, those who can't find a breadwinner in their family, because this recovery has been the weakest in modern times. We're missing 4 million jobs because of the growth gap that's getting bigger. Food stamps, since the recession bottomed out, Americans are more likely to be forced to the food stamp line than to actually walk into a company that's offered them a new job. In those who've given up hope and just dropped out of the workforce, we've gone backward to Jimmy Carter days. And so I don't think this budget's fair to them because it stays the course on just very weak, poor economic leadership. Looking toward those areas where there may be common ground, tax reform and saving Social Security Medicare, I think there's a path forward. I don't think we ought to close loopholes so the government can spend more. We ought to close loopholes so we can lower taxes for everyone, families, small businesses, big business as well. And so I have 3 questions for you, Mr. Secretary. And like Chairman Camp, welcome you back to the committee. Appreciate the work you've done in the past. I think you can bring a valuable work ethic to this whole effort. My first question is, will you commit to sitting down with Republicans today, starting now, to fix the broken tax code this year?
Congressman, we are already working to provide technical support for both the House and the Senate as you do your work.
So is that closer? So you, Mr. Secretary, the point man for the President on tax reform, are you willing to sit at the table and stay at the table to finish fundamental tax reform this year?
Congressman, in the context of our overall fiscal plan, we have a disagreement on whether or not we need to raise revenue. That's a legitimate disagreement. We're going to have to work our way through that. In the context of a fiscal plan that solves our deficit problems, we very much want to engage on tax reform.
Is that closer to a yes, that you'll come to the table and stay there?
I've always
closer to a no.
I've always been prepared to talk, and I remain prepared to talk, but I also like to be very clear. I can't paper over what is a significant difference.
Well, the question isn't that there's differences. We have different ideas. The question is, will you commit to coming to the table now to resolve those differences?
We have always been prepared to talk with this committee and other committees about the important business before us. Nothing is more important than getting our fiscal house in order, and as part of that, tax reform is a very, very important part.
Could you possibly be more vague at this point? Second question, will you commit to fixing the broken tax code for families and small businesses as well as for big businesses?
Again, as I responded earlier, we are very much supportive of both individual and business tax reform. We think they need to move together, and we'd like to work with you to do that this year.
And so your point is we should not do, the White House's point is we should not do corporate tax reform alone, that we need fundamental reform, authentic reform for families and small businesses as well?
Well, Congressman, you're asking questions about small business. Small businesses have to make the decision whether they organize under the corporate tax laws or as partnerships under the individual tax laws. I don't know how we create a situation where they can make a sensible decision if we don't deal with it.
Okay. But the government's role is not to tell businesses how they organize.
No, not at all.
That. So many of them file as individuals. So my question is really simple. Will you commit to authentic tax reform, fixes broken code for small businesses and families as well as big businesses?
So, Congressman, I'm trying to answer with some precision. Small businesses do make their own decisions how to organize. One of the reasons they organize as partnerships is that our statutory rate is so high on the business side. So as we go through business tax reform, that will change the decisions that many of them make.
10 seconds. Will you commit to saving Social Security and Medicare for its own sake?
I have for
For
40
its own
years.
sake.
I have for 40 years believed in
Time
saving
has
Social
expired.
Security and Medicare.